After an already devastating Wednesday for Donald Trump amid the release of a trove of incriminating emails from the Epstein estate, it just begun getting a lot worse at the hands of members of Congress of Trump's own party.
Look, I think the Oversight Committee, I'm going to vote for it if it comes up because...
You'll vote for the bill.
Yeah, because, look, I think the Oversight Committee has pushed out a lot of disclosures. The administration's done a lot. If you look in the UK, they've tried to do something towards Prince Andrew. But one of the ththings that went away during this shutdown is Pam Bondi was supposed to come to the House and answer these questions. And look, I'm not on the Judiciary Committee, but I did want Pam Bondi to come and do some explaining.
That was Republican lawmaker Warren Davidson, who joins a growing number of other Republican lawmakers who have signaled that, now that the discharge petition to force a vote on the Epstein file has reached 218 signatures and will pass anyway, plenty more Republicans are very quickly jumping on board. Davidson is joined by Eli Crane, Don Bacon, and of course the four Republicans who'd already signed the discharge petition, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Thomas Massie. Massie, for his part, explained that now that the vote is inevitable, support for it will, quote, snowball. Why is that important? Because even if it passes the House and passes the Senate, which is a tall order considering it'll require 60 votes to pass, which means 13 Republicans have to defect, then it's clear that Trump will just veto it. So what's needed will be a veto-proof majority to override Trump's veto. And that's a point that Massie made here.
How many Republicans do you think will vote for this on the floor?
Well, I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it. And I think that could snowball. I mean, the deal for Republicans on this vote is that Trump will protect you if you vote the wrong way. In other words, if you vote to cover up for pedophiles, you've got cover in a Republican primary. But I would remind my colleagues that this vote is going to be on your record for longer than Trump is going to be president. And what are you going to do in 2028 and 2030 when you're in a debate, either with a Republican or a Democrat, and they say, how can we trust you? You covered up for a pedophile back in 2025.
Ro Khanna, who co-sponsored the discharge petition, made a similar point.
Well, I think the speaker's concluded if you can't stop the parade, you might as well lead it. And so now he's saying, I want to have the vote. I do think that you could get 30, 40, 50 Republicans voting for it, because what are we talking about? We're talking about rich and powerful men who abused young girls and told people in junior high to go recruit others to be raped or abused. That's what we're talking about. And we're saying that these victims want to expose the men who did this to them. Some of these men still have buildings named after them. Some of them still have scholarships named after them. Enough. And so I think when it's actually a vote on the House floor, do you want these files released? Republicans and Democrats are going to vote yes.
For those Republicans, the reality is that while things might seem convenient now to blindly defer to Trump, Massie's right when he says that Trump won't be around forever. But your vote to defend a pedophile ring will. That's not something that you'll be able to outrun or try to explain away. There are already too many Republicans who are able to acknowledge objective reality to give you any cover when, a few years down the line, your vote to protect pedophiles suddenly becomes inconvenient without the assurance of protection from Daddy Trump. And to that end, someone should probably let Mike Johnson know.
You say that you're for full transparency, so why not just urge all your Republicans to vote for this Massie Khanna bill on the Epstein files next week? Put out all the files. Let the American public judge for themselves what these
we
files
are. Thank you
about.
for asking the question. We have been for maximum transparency of the Epstein files from the very beginning. What I was opposed to is the reckless disregard that was used in drafting the discharge petition. And we've been over this many times, but it was not drafted in such a way that it would adequately protect innocent victims. We have a responsibility to do that. There's as many as 1,000 women, by some estimates, of people who have been victimized because of the sex trafficking and Epstein and all these horrendous, heinous crimes, and we can't have them subjected to any further harm. So we wanted to make sure that they were whose names were properly redacted out of the files. But the discharge petition is not only reckless, it is also a totally moot point. The Oversight Committee has been working, as you all know, around the clock, working on this. And you have some of the toughest members of Congress on the Republican and Democrat side who are working in bipartisan fashion to go through and release those files. As we stand here tonight, I think we're up to over 50,000 pages of records that are out in the open. You can go online tonight if you're at home and go through it yourself.
First of all, regarding the files released by the Oversight Committee, 97% of them have already been released to the public. James Comer is just releasing what we've already seen and then relying on hacks like Mike Johnson to pretend that it's some big victory for transparency. And yes, the emails that make news are from the Epstein estate. Guess what? Those emails are already in the DOJ's Epstein files, along with hundreds of thousands of other documents. We would be able to see all of it if it wasn't being suppressed by the administration, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and the rest of the Trump White House. And finally, give me a break on this idea that Mike Johnson would definitely, totally love to release the files if but for the insistence that the victims be protected. The reality is this bill specifically allows for exemptions to protect victims' identities and to ensure ongoing investigations are not compromised. But that's inconvenient for Mike Johnson, and so instead, he'll stand up there and pretend that he's suddenly concerned for the same victims while he spent the last 2 months protecting the perpetrators of their crimes. And look, if this is what Mike Johnson wants his legacy to be, that's his prerogative. I personally would not want to be remembered as the guy who orchestrated a pedophile ring cover-up in the house for 2 whole months, but then again, I also wouldn't want to be known as the guy whose son gets notified when he looks at porn, and yet that hasn't stopped Mike Johnson either. But while Johnson's legacy is cemented, it is not too late for everyone else in the GOP to get on the right side of history, the side of history that their own party ran on during the campaign.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
You wondering why we're not hearing more about this Epstein case? I mean, the guy was only connected to just about every major player in the swamp internationally, and yet you don't hear much about it. And what the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein?
I mean, hell, even Trump himself exploited this issue.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
So clearly, he knows what's right here, which makes the fact that he is engaging in a massive cover-up all the more damning. He is playing his supporters for absolute fools. Mike Johnson's doing the same, and they're trying to get the rest of the GOP on board because they despise their base and think that they can lie to them with absolute impunity. The coming days are going to determine which side these Republican lawmakers are on. Trump's side or the side of the rest of America, the side of decency, and the side that thinks pedophile rings are bad. Let's see which side they choose and what kind of legacy they want, because one way or the other, I can promise you that we will not forget. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.